All right. So whenever you like, Peg, it's a pleasure to have you on. We really appreciate you making the time. I'm a huge fan of your organization. I've been to, I've seen where you started from, and I've been to your most recent facility, which is amazing. And I'll just turn it over to you and let you talk a little bit about who you are and what you created and what we can do to help.
Excellent. Thank you, Dennis. It's wonderful to be here. I love to talk about our mission, and you're right. We were in a little house in Somerville with 2 bedrooms. We accommodated 6 pregnant women, and after they delivered their children, they could not come back. We had no room for the children. So around that time, I spoke with several people to learn about, how a nonprofit functioned, and it all emanates from the board. So I was able to attract a board that really had the same heart for the work that we do. And we raised about $5 million and built 2 buildings in Somerset, one for adolescents and their children, and one for adult women, pregnant and parenting as well. And we had a vision for the work. It has really transformed over time. And the way that it's transformed is that about 11 years ago, Dr. Debbie Roussard came into the center. She's still with me, and came with the concept of treating substance use and mental health disorders through the lens of trauma. And, it's interesting. It's a buzzword now, but for us, it's who we are. It's our fabric. It's embedded in the culture of what we do. So we are complex trauma specialists. And in addition to that, we have integrated what is called early relational health, which looks at the attachment of the mother and child. So those are we're specialists really in that area. And, in order to do the work, we've created a continuum of care, because we recognize that, beginning just in an adolescent, rather in a residential setting, is just the beginning of what the women and children that we serve need. So the continuum includes an outpatient program. It includes a child development center, which is a critical piece that's in the residential program. It includes supportive housing. We have 28 supportive housing units, and we're very dedicated to the discharge, which is critical, and remaining in touch. Then more recently, in the last several years, we've begun to implement a program called START, which Carolyn heads up, which is an in-home program, which includes substance use disorder treatment, case management with a doula, and early relational health. And we do that in 6 counties. We've also expanded into a federally qualified healthcare center in Newark, and we'll be actually expanding into other areas as well. Integrating mental health and substance use in a primary care setting is a critical piece. We do warm handoffs in that regard. And through all of this, how much time do I have? I could talk for hours.
I was going to say, and we have about 2 more minutes. And the first piece, though, is I know about you, but I don't know if everyone knows, the name of your organization and that phase. So let's talk about, that and how people can donate and help as well. And then we can wrap up and get into the panel where your specialists will be talking more.
Absolutely. Did I not say that we are the Center for Great Expectations? Absolutely. And, what was born out of all of this wonderful experience and the incredible expertise of the clinical staff that we have is the Katari Institute. And that's a training institute which integrates clinical. One part of Katari is a clinical component, and we've been doing webinars for the community around a whole series of topics. And the other half of it is the SEL, or social emotional learning component, in school systems. And we piloted it at Hunterdon Central High School, and we're about to enter the school systems in Bridgewater. We're doing some work in Holmdel. We're doing some work in Wallingford, Connecticut. And we're very quiet about it because it's a data collecting entity. We must make sure that the quality of the product that we're producing is consistent with our overall quality. So we're excited. we love people to come and visit. It's been really challenging. So I understand that we're going to be doing virtual visits. And in fact, if you look on our website, there is a way to do a virtual tour from the 2020 gala video. And I would encourage people to, take a look at that. In the 2019 video, you can actually see some of our clinical partners like Denise Heen, who is now she's the Dean of the School of Psychology at Rutgers. Dr. Emily Bosk is in the area of social work and specializes in early relational health. So all of these components come together to really impact the community in a very positive way. And we're excited to be able to do that.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you so much. So we'll bring the other two panelists in now that we've heard from Peg, and we'll bring in both Rochelle, do you want to start and introduce yourself and who you are and what you do?
Sure. My name is Rochelle DiCrescenzo. I'm a physical therapist, and I have a practice in Clinton. It's called The Healing Journey, Myofascial Release and Physical Therapy. So I focus more on kind of non-traditional physical therapy. I've been a physical therapist for 17 years, but my practice now focuses on myofascial release, which is a very holistic, hands-on, whole body, mind, body, spirit type of treatment that really focuses on getting to the root of the problem rather than just putting Band-Aids on the problem. Really tries to get to the root of the symptoms. But today I'm really speaking more as a mom. I have a 9-month-old and I have a 6.5-year-old. So yeah, Dennis, was there a specific question you wanted?
Well, yeah, we'll start asking the questions, but I just wanted everyone to get an understanding of who you are, and then we'll bring in Carolyn as well. So Carolyn, you want to introduce yourself, who you are and what you do, and then we'll address 2 or 3 simple questions.
Hi, my name is Carolyn Flynn. I'm the director of the START program at the Center for Great Expectations. We provide in-home services for pregnant and parenting persons with trauma and substance use. And I'm also an early relational health specialist at the Center for Great Expectations, including the START program. I'm a licensed counselor and rostered in child-parent psychotherapy.
Excellent, excellent. So first and foremost, it's wonderful to know that these type of resources are local here in Central New Jersey to begin with. I mean, we have some pretty powerful people here on this line, which is pretty impressive. So as far as going through, before everything started, before the pandemic, we're going to talk a little bit about what life was like in your perspective roles before the pandemic. And then if we can go on after the and then we'll follow up with what it's like now. So we'll start there. So let's start with Rochelle first. Do you want to go into a little bit about, how the pandemic has changed, obviously as a mom and your business a little bit? I know you have the ability to work with pregnant women, moms, different people. How have you found that your clients and yourself were before the pandemic, and then what's it like now?
Yeah, I mean, I'll speak more really, I guess, about my me as a mom, and from that perspective. I mean, my practice is my current practice is still fairly new, so I don't have and I didn't work a lot with children prior. So but as a mom, things have obviously definitely changed a lot. I mean, just from, like I said, I have a 9-month-old and a 6.5-year-old. So just the pregnancy, the labor, was so different between the two children. I mean, with my 6-year-old, it was kind of the standard. You go to the hospital and people come visit, and you're there for a few days and people can come and go, and it was kind of your standard delivery. Whereas with my son, it was during the pandemic. He was born in May, so just completely different hospital experience. I gave birth to him at Hunterdon Medical, and they were wonderful, but very different experience. My husband was allowed to come in, which was obviously wonderful. I can't imagine doing it without him. But there was talk right at the beginning of the pandemic that they weren't going to allow support people to come in because of so many unknowns. And that was, very disconcerting to me, having already have gone through it and just knowing the importance of having my husband there. The fact that he may not have been able to come was very scary, but he was able to come, but he was the only visitor. Once we were in, He wasn't allowed to leave. we weren't even allowed to leave our rooms. I gave birth in one room, and then once we were ready to move to the other room, we moved together, and that's where we stayed. If we needed anything, we asked the nurses. So very different experience. In some ways, it was kind of nice not to have so many visitors in and out, actually, and just to be me and my husband. But I would have obviously loved for my daughter to come to the hospital. I think her coming home to me and my husband already being here with the baby was difficult on her. I think she's being 6 years old. It's already hard to bring in a baby to the family. And then when we came home and we were already here, and then she had to come in the house, I think that was difficult for her. And then just, having him, it's been a very different experience. I really don't take him anywhere except for, he's in the car every once in a while, but I'm very careful about bringing him in the supermarket or stores, just because he can't wear a mask. He can't really protect himself. So it's just been a very different experience. He's not getting the same types of interactions, even with family. We're being, we're seeing some family, but being careful. So very different experience, from my daughter to my son as far as parenting.
Understood. Would you want to go, Carolyn, as far as explaining a little bit about, first, I think we're going to need to learn a little bit more about what it is you do prior to COVID, and then we can talk about how that changed.
Sure. So the START program is only one of many programs across the continuum of care at CGE. I'll speak directly to the experience of the providers at START and the families at START, since I know that most intimately. So START offers 3 services in our clients' homes. We are designed to overcome the barriers to recovery for pregnant and parenting persons. So we think about the many barriers to attending treatment where mom and baby might be separated, difficulties with transportation, if parents have childcare, these are all barriers. So we bring our services to our clients, and we offer early relational health treatment. So this is an integrated model of attachment-based therapies where we're looking at the patterns of intergenerational trauma and relational impairments combined with substance use treatment. So the intersection of trauma and substance use on the relationship between mom and baby. We also have an integrated doula case manager. So this is someone who is providing birth education, support at the hospital, really mothering the mother during postpartum, and then helping with access to all social determinants of health, where we know that in order to focus on trauma and treatment, an individual does need to have food security, safe housing, safe relationships. So really providing that foundation. And then lastly, peer recovery support from a certified peer recovery specialist who has been through recovery themselves and can offer that different perspective. So prior to COVID-19, one of the most wonderful things about in-home work is that we have such an intimate setting and so much context around our clients. We're coming into their home, we can get the feeling for what life is like for them on a day-to-day basis. And we've moved from that to really needing to adapt in terms of doing walk and talks in the park rather than being in the client's home, or using telehealth, so using video chat or having phone sessions. So this invites both challenges and opportunities for our providers, but we've adapted in some really unique ways to shifting to meet our clients' needs. For example, while we often can't provide transportation, if that is unsafe due to proximity, we have been able to bring food to our clients' homes, to bring diapers, to bring formula. So we've really just pivoted and adapted to where our clients are at.
Excellent, excellent. So as far as I know, and then we'll come back to Rochelle, as far as the interesting piece before we started the videos, you were mentioning that a heavy data aspect to your role and to your business. Can you get into that a little bit more detail for us?
Absolutely. So in all of our programs across the continuum of care, we realize that there are many different ways that we can measure progress that our clients are making, or whether our programs are being effective. And it's important to look not only at the client's perspective, the provider's perspective, but also outcomes based on data. So at START, our clients complete at intake, every 6 months of treatment throughout their 18 months with us, and then at discharge, a whole series of clinical assessments. We do an index regarding PTSD symptoms. We do assessments around anxiety, depression, parenting stress, and even something called the working model of the child interview, where we're really looking at how the parent perceives the child and attachment indices as well. So we're able to really look at not just how we think our clients are doing or how our clients think that they're doing, which they're a piece of the puzzle, but looking at changes in data on all of these different measures across the time that they're in treatment, and working with the Rutgers School of Social Work in order to be able to really look at patterns and create a complete picture of how our services are helping our clients to meet their goals.
Great, great. And Rochelle, we'll come back to you with the question of, as a mom with, and the situation, what are your concerns? What are you, what are you most worried about as the impact on your children?
I think for, it's a little different for each of them. I mean, for my 6-year-old, mostly just, the lack of social interaction. She's been home doing virtual school. We're in Clinton Township. So they do offer a hybrid model. However, it's only to go into school, the hybrid is only 2 half days in the school and the rest is virtual. So you had the choice to keep the child virtual or do the hybrid. And because it was only 2 half days and we had our son, my husband's been working from home since COVID started, we just decided to keep her all virtual. So she does do some activities. We have her in dance class and like a tumbling class, but it's just not the same. It's not the same at all. She's not getting the same interaction. She's not playing with friends. We really don't have play dates. We have 2 little neighbors next door to us that she plays with sometimes if the weather allows outside. But, that's when I'm concerned for her. I mean, she's a very smart little girl and I think she'll be fine. She seems to be adjusting okay. But I see, I see how she sometimes interacts with us or with other kids where when we are around them and she forgets how to interact with kids. So that's probably my biggest concern. And then for my little guy, I mean, he's small, it's hard to tell. I mean, I think, it's just been a challenge to always have to kind of, keep him home, figure out how I'm going to watch him, my husband's going to watch him. Like, again, I'm being careful. So if I have to run to the supermarket, I'm not taking him with me where I would have. And I think I know how much my daughter loved going to the supermarket with me. For instance, like she loved sitting in the cart and looking around, and he's not getting any of that. So I'm a little bit concerned about how those things are gonna be. And then the other thing I just wanted to say briefly was, I think I don't know if you were going to touch on this, Dennis, but you had said, maybe something that we can take from this or learn from it. And I think, for as a mom, just having that time for like self-care is really important, like taking some time for yourself, because I'm definitely around my kids a lot more than I think I would be otherwise. And it can be really stressful. So, just taking time for myself. And I think, as a physical therapist, I know some of these things and know what to do, but just, it could be anything. It doesn't need to be physical exercise. I mean, I think just anything that you feel like you're taking a time for yourself, even if it's journaling or something like that. But I think as a parent, when you are under so much more stress because your kids are not in their normal regular routine, just taking time for yourself is doing something little every day is so important.
You stole your 2-minute wrap up at the end, but that's okay. I'm going to ask any questions at this point. Does anyone have any questions for the group at this point? Anything in particular they'd like to ask? Feel free to come off mute and ask it. All right. Rarely does anyone brave enough to do that. So, Paul, go ahead, sir.
Yeah. So full disclosure, I don't have any kids, right? So it's kind of a moot point for me. But what it did kind of make me think about is, just like you were saying, Rochelle, the social impacts of young children who now have this at least a year of time where there is very little social interaction. That just blows my mind. Something I've never had the need to think about, didn't think about. I'm just like, wow. Right. So kind of the long-term implications of things like that.
Yeah, we'll be feeling this for a while, definitely.
Yeah.
So Carolyn, you have your 2 minutes now to wrap up and say whatever you think is important that you really want everyone to know.
Thank you. I think something that is worth considering is, and following up with what Rochelle said in terms of the impact of stress, that stress affects the relationship between mom and baby even during pregnancy. So we see infants who are born where during gestation, mom was exposed to large amounts of stress. We know from studies that infants are aware of the mother's emotional state while they are gestating, and that infants who are born to mothers in high stress environments are born with larger, more reactive amygdalas. So that's the part of the brain that activates that flight response that's impulsive, that responds to emotionality, and smaller, less developed cerebral cortices. So infants who are gestating during this time are being born with a changed brain structure. And then they are born into a relationship with a mother who is very much impacted herself by the stress, as Rochelle mentioned. For the clients at START and the Center for Great Expectations, they are already very under-resourced. They have trauma histories. They are using substances as coping techniques. And so not only is mom impacted, and not only is the child impacted, but that relationship is truly the child's environment. And that relationship, that container for the child's development, is also impacted by the stress of COVID-19.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, no, I mean, so we'll give a chance to come back. Peg, if you want to come back and just real quick say how people who are interested in helping you can help you.
Thank you, Dennis. Yeah, I would urge, anyone that has an interest in learning more about the center to go to our website, which is, pretty comprehensive. And in addition to that, you can donate right on the website, which is offered. And, we're also really excited to invite people back in. I mean, I don't think I've ever had a visitor that came to the center, and Dennis, you can speak to this, but when we talk about, a trauma-informed environment, it's really palpable, at the center. And I think when people can actually touch and feel and see what we do, it really encourages them to get behind the mission and to support us. I mean, we raise about 30% of our annual income, which ends up to be about $1.5 million. So
Yeah, no, I can attest that. And it's things you don't really think about when you're just running around doing your business stuff and doing what you do. And you get in there and you see what a wonderful and how committed the people are. It's just wonderful. That's why you were the first people I thought of when we were talking about this, and had to have you guys on and had to have you guys talk. So
thank you so much. We're
no
grateful.
problem. So we'll jump to the second panel right now, and this is going to be a little bit of a different format. We'll have Kathy Rosa go first. Let her explain about what she does. Have about 7 or 8 minutes here. Well, actually, up to 10 minutes, I think we're timing wise, to go through everything and what you're about. And then Tracy will come on separately to have her aspect as well.
Okay, great. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me today. My name is Kathy Rosa, and I'm an art therapist based out of Clinton. I own a business. It's called Embodied Art Therapy and Yoga, and I work primarily with children and adolescents. I've been doing this work for about 16 years. Before I had my own private practice here, I worked in hospitals, residentials, school settings, all different kind of places. And just after all that time, I decided that, community type work is really where I wanted to be. So a little bit about art therapy. So an art therapist is a master's level, at least clinician, who is trained in counseling techniques and also visual arts, and who helps to improve the quality of life in people. So you might find art therapists in hospitals, psychiatric hospitals, nursing homes, schools, all different kinds of places. And for myself, I work in private practice. And the bulk of the kids that have come in this past year have been really a lot of kids struggling with anxiety, depression, ADHD, and autism. And it's just skyrocketed this past year. Mental health issues have always been a thing, and kids have always struggled, adolescents and adults. But this year, it's just like it's it's just blown up. I kind of like to think about COVID as like a worldwide adjustment disorder, because really, like, we've never seen anything like this before. We've never dealt anything like this before. And it's just really hitting people pretty hard. Like the previous speakers were talking about, like that lack of connection, that loss of connection is just really hitting people. Like as mammals, we're just hardwired. We need connection. And while Zoom and these kind of things are a really nice substitute in some ways, it's just not cutting it. And it's just presented such an issue with learning, with connectiveness, and, for many, many reasons. So like I was saying, a lot of the kids that have come into my practice have been the kids that struggle with neurodiverse, not the kids that are labeled as neurodiverse or neurodivergent, so ADHD, autism, processing disorders. And a huge reason for that, I believe, is because, well, there's so many reasons, but a lot of it is they're taken out of their context, right? Like most of us, our homes are supposed to be where we go at the end of the day, after work, after school, we check out, we go home, we hang our hats, and we can relax. But now home is supposed to be the office, the school, the place where we rest. It's everything. And it's not conducive to learning whatsoever. There's no teacher there. There's a teacher, but she's on the screen, but then there's also the snacks in the corner over there. And then there's a dog. And then there's the mom or the dad who's stressed out trying to do 100 different things, including myself. and, it takes a lot, with a lot of these kids. They have issues with what's called executive functioning. And if you don't have ADHD, or if you don't have any kind of neurodivergent, challenges, it's basically, long story short, it's goal directed behavior, like motivated by yourself. So that might mean working memory. That might mean, oh, no kids, just imagine what, yeah, sounds like me. So basically, taking actions on your own to get things done. And if you can imagine a kid who really has a problem with working memory, such as somebody with ADD, ADHD, okay, you have to log on. Raise your hand if you know the answer. Okay, you have to raise your hand. You have to keep in mind the answer in your head, and then you have to unmute yourself, and then you have to click this, and then you have to click that, paired with the pressure of already feeling kind of insecure with themselves. And then, I don't know. So, I mean, it's 10 minutes is not enough to explain all that, but that's
Yeah,
just
it's a nightmare. We can have, I live it too. If it's my daughter, and she's in school most of the time. She's in a private school, so she's there most of the time. And still, when she has it, it's horrible. But what I'd love to find out more, and I think everyone would, is, obviously not getting into any personal cases or anything, but what do you do when you sit down, and what type of therapy? Like, how does the art piece work? Because I know art's just huge for my daughter. It's relaxing. Everyone, the coloring book. So kind of get us into. I think it's fascinating for everyone. Will be like, what's the treatment and how that works?
Sure. So, it kind of depends like who you're working with, because like when I was working in group homes and psychiatric hospitals, the art really was a way to kind of get them together and sit in the same room and not kill each other. And literally that was like success, woo, bells and whistles, and then you have somebody who might be a lot more higher functioning, and it really helps them to, like, let's say somebody might have PTSD, when they're getting into that painful material or that traumatic material, the part of the brain that's responsible for verbalizing this stuff literally goes offline. It shuts down. There's no words, literally. And so the art therapy or other creative arts modalities kind of allows a backdoor approach, because that part of the brain is not shut down. It's stored on the same side of the brain, those traumatic memories. So they are accessible through art making. So it kind of allows that material to get out of their system onto a piece of paper or through a sculpture or whatever they're making, and we can process that, and it's kind of externalized. For children too, it's not like you can just like sit them down on the chair. Okay, tell me about your problems. I mean, some of them you can, but really it's much more hands-on. It's more active. It's engaging. It's a way to kind of get them pulled in. And some of them you really can process with some kids, and they can really connect dots. And some of them are just so fragile, or they've just been through so much, they just cannot go directly into the problem or directly into like what's going on with them. So you might draw a picture, like if there's, big time family issues, like maybe we would tell a little story about a family of animals who feels, one of them is always angry and just feels so misunderstood. Can you draw this animal? And can you let's write a story about it, or let's, create a dialogue about it. So, it's really interesting. You're working through the metaphor instead of going directly into the child's psyche. Some of them, they just can't handle it. A lot of unconscious material also comes up, things that people don't always realize, or they don't always put there on purpose, but it comes up kind of like, like a Freudian slip or stuff that comes up in dreams. sort of in the same vein. So there's so many different ways to work with the materials. People with autism, a lot of times it's sensory integration, fine motor skills. So it really just depends on what the goals are and who I'm working with. Um, but really for the art piece, like so many kids have just shut down, like they've just kids that have already are prone to isolation, when you're really depressed or really anxious, most people want to pull back. And then, now it's kind of normalized to do school at home. And so they pull back even more. And just the thought of going back out into society or the thought of externalizing anything is just so overwhelming. And so the art really allows like a lowering of the defenses. For some kids, it's like they're making art as they're talking. For some kids, it's they're just making the art and then afterwards we process. But it really is such a valuable tool.
No, I can definitely see how that can help. And so as far as like with everyone else, what's the one thing you want people to take if they take nothing else from your conversation? What's that one thing, your 2-minute wrap up as to what they should be?
I just really feel like a lot of it is self-care. A lot of it is kind of normalizing how insane this is, because I hear so many people, so many kids, like they're like, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? I'm so unmotivated. I can't do it, and a lot of it is like, well, you've been sitting in the same four walls. And, like for me, it's like, whoa, I get to go to ShopRite or Walmart, I can get in my car and drive away. Like that's my exciting life these days with COVID, but many of these kids, they just literally can't. They don't have anything to look back on. Well, I don't want to say anything, but as adults, we have a whole lifetime worth of experience to draw upon. Not like COVID, but we can look back and say, last time I had a catastrophe, I was able to deal with it. I had this person and that, and I did this. Kids and adolescents, a lot of times when their world comes crumbling down, like it's for the first time. And a lot of them really, they already had underlying issues. And then with all of this stress and all of these changes, it really it really is bringing it up to the surface. So, giving these kids a safe place to just be themselves, to allow somebody else to help hold on to their issues with them and work through them has been so powerful. If I had a magic wand and I could just make it disappear, of course we would. But sometimes really just the more adults or the more loving people and caring people they have in their lives just significantly reduces the risk for suicide and self-injury. You know, so the more outlets these kids have and the more opportunities they have to realize, no, there's not necessarily a thing wrong with you. It's let's look at the whole context here and let's find ways of how we can, strengthen where you need to be strengthened and how can we help you figure out step by step, how are we going to get through this, how to keep your hope alive and, maintain wellness.
As far as we're going to be posting this video up, so what was the best way to reach you? Would it be email, phone number? How would you prefer
Sure.
people reach you?
Sure. My webpage is www.arttherapyandyoga.com. My phone number is 732-439-3385. And my email is clintonarttherapy@gmail.com.
Great, and we'll have that all posted with the video and everything. So
Thank you
excellent.
so much. Thank you
So
for
Tracy, do you want to take a minute and introduce yourself? Well, before we go, just real quick, anyone have any questions? I kind of guessed that no one would, but anyone have any questions or anything for Kathy at this point? Or
I don't have a question, but I have a comment. We adopted twins from Romania in 1995, and they were 2 years old, and they saw an art therapist in Clinton by the name of David Hanley, and it was extraordinary. It really was amazing. So I'm a big fan, and we have an art therapist at the Center for Great Expectations as well.
Oh,
It's a wonderful modality, so thank you for what you do.
thank you so much. Thank you.
Excellent. Now, Tracy, go ahead. You want to introduce yourself? I think you have a slide presentation. You should have the ability to present, and you can take us home.
You know what? I will introduce myself, but I thought I was able to connect with you while this was happening to pivot. I'm loving the format of just more organic Q&A.
Okay, well, it's up to you. It's your time. Let's do it
I
that
don't
way.
need to throw a monkey wrench, but this is just beautiful, productive dialogue that I'd like to keep the flow going. My name's Tracy Spiaggia. I am the owner of Slingshot Health Coaching. I am a functionally trained health and wellness coach, as well as a national board certified health and wellness coach and a brain health coach through Amen Clinic. I am so thrilled and honored to hear from each of the panelists. The one thing I would like to kick off with is I know that we have been and still are in a season of great trial. And I know that this panel has bleeding hearts for the youth, and praise God for that. We need that. I just want to encourage everyone that nothing is wasted, that when we go through crises like this, it draws out of society. It draws people out of their homes to be a force for good. And when I hear people bringing their beautiful skill sets out into the world in a way to manifest light in a season of dark, it just gives me so much hope, and it just continues to ignite a passion that's in me that I love for children as well. So what I primarily do, I've been fascinated with health and wellness all my life, personal trainer and a running coach. I wanted to add the nutrition piece and just fell head over heels in love with functional medicine and the intersection of mental health, most especially with our youth, and the power that food and lifestyle have. As a society, we have gone full warp speed in the opposite direction of the way that really we are designed to live. There is a design to the way that a human being is meant to live so it can thrive. No different than any other organic element in the world. It all has an ideal setting, right? But we are going so fast and furious in the opposite direction of how we are to live in order to be our best and show up in life as our best. And of course, it's the children that so many of us have just broken hearts for, because they are at the mercy of the way the home is functioning, right? They're just at the mercy of it. So anybody who is an adult who has suffered trauma, we can look at them and compartmentalize them as an adult and say, oh, you know, their behavior, it's abhorrent. There's always a way to go back to their beginning and see where the trauma began. It could even be like, I believe Carolyn was saying, even in utero. That stress response is being knit together. Again, knowing some of the same things that she does, that adversely expresses genes that we want to kind of keep quiet. It causes the fear center, the limbic system, to be a little bit disproportionately larger and overactive. So this baby who is being knit together can sense the chaos. That's how brilliant we are. They can sense discord. They can sense stress in the mother. And then we can take the next step, is that baby born via C-section and missing out on that beautiful inoculation that comes with a vaginal birth. More and more births are defaulting to C-section for various reasons, many of which are non-medically necessary. Then we have mothers who can or choose not to breastfeed. And there's nothing that man can create in a lab that mimics the brilliance of that colostrum and that breast milk coming from the mother. It's another tremendous unmatched source of bacteria that informs the microbiome. I mean, I kind of going off on a little bit of a tangent, but I guess my passion is to bring in understanding of nutrition and lifestyle from conception all the way to adult life, and how our food choices, we are comprised, our material body is constantly regenerating. And what is it regenerating from? It's regenerating from the food we eat. So as the brain is trying to develop itself on a diet that is woefully short in healthy fats, the brain, the solid portion of the brain is 60% fat. So if we have a diet that's low in those essential healthy fats, and we're eating a diet that's high in omega-6 fats, that highly processed, highly heat, which is oxidative, the body's going to go and pull what material it can, but it's kind of like building a house out of scrap wood that you pulled out of a dumpster and wonder why the house can't withstand a storm. The food is so essential.
I was going to say, so if a family comes to you and they have, and they're in a state of disarray or different things, how would you structure something for them with what you do, kind of, so people have a flavor for that?
Yeah, that's a good question. Every single person that walks into my door is a unique person, and they need that holy space to be held for them, so I can hear about their whole story. The whole entire thing matters. I can't just come at every single person with a quote unquote diet that's perfect. That's the worst way, I believe, to approach. This is very nuanced. It's very individualistic, but there are some pillars that I will speak to everyone that I work with. Is, we've gotten so far away from a whole food diet. If I can encourage people, especially moms and dads, to pull back on the processed foods, to pull back on the sugars, to pull back on all of the grains, and to return to whole food. In other words, like my daughter said to me recently, there's nothing to eat in the house. I said, are you kidding? There's so much food. She goes, yeah, they only taste good when they come together. But by them, I said, yes. That's because they are ingredients. She's looking for that, like, grab off a shelf, chuck in your mouth, I'm done. So I thought that was funny. But so I would encourage parents, two things. I would first start by saying, do not make perfect the enemy of the good. Even 1 degree turns matter. Even if you say, instead of 5 Pepsis today, you can only have 4, and a glass of water will replace that 5th, that to me is a win. If we can just begin to slowly move away from what is poisoning the brain, and to speak specifically to the work that the other panelists are doing, the work that they are doing, the trauma resolution, the neurological disorders, they necessitate essential nutrients. Those processes can't happen to the fullest extent if the body is not receiving what are called essential nutrients, meaning the body cannot generate them on its own. It needs to come in through our food sources. So as you try to detoxify trauma out of the body, that necessitates nutrients. If you try to bring a brain back online and mitigate and manage some of the symptoms that go along with ADHD, that requires targeted nutrients. So there's no question that the one broad stroke recommendation that applies to all of us is move as much away from processed foods. They're called dead foods. If you're consuming what are dead foods, the body has no live material to use. It doesn't lend itself to a body that's growing, developing, and trying to heal from all kinds of trauma. Trauma alone is the processed food. That's a trauma to the body in and of itself. So if you're talking to families who are struggling, especially with single parent homes, especially the communities that these beautiful women are working with, adolescents with their children coming into the clinic, we want to start slow so that you don't scare them off and make this too big of an ideal, right? So it's, can we shoot for 1 apple today? If you're talking to somebody who's only going through a drive-through once or twice a day, and that's pretty much all they're eating, to add an apple to that, to me, that's a win. So I just encourage people within the constructs of their own unique resources and their own bandwidth, whether it's mental bandwidth, emotional bandwidth, financial bandwidth, whatever your bandwidth is, expand into that, aligning yourself with the way that we are designed to live. We are not designed to pony up to a drive-through. We are designed to sit down to a plate that has vibrant colors, lots of textures and flavors, so that when that food comes in, cells can do what they're wired to do. They are wired to give us vibrant health. They are wired to bring the brain online. They're wired to be strong to handle waves of trauma. But when we don't steward the body well by feeding it right, resting it right, moving it right, hydrating it right, just nurturing it right, it's no wonder we are experiencing the mental crisis that we are. And I find that this last year with COVID has only brought to the surface something that has been brewing since the advent of the internet. Our children are dying on the vine. And this whole cataclysmic experience has brought children back into their homes, whatever the home looks like, but hopefully has given an opportunity for us adults to say, my gosh, what are we doing to our kids? All of these standardized tests, all of these early morning wakes, these 9-hour school days, and then 5 hours of homework, and then 3 sports, and nobody's exploring their faith any longer. Families aren't eating together at the table. Everybody's off running in different directions. 50% or more homes are broken in single parent homes. We are just so much out of alignment with the way that we are designed, that this crisis, I think, has even though we're still processing and metabolizing it, I think ultimately I'm going to fix my mind on the good that's going to come out of it, because I think a lot of people are waking up to, at the very least, what is being done to our children.
Understood. Understood. Any questions from anybody before Tracy wraps up? Anyone have
I
any
have a
questions?
question for Tracy. Tracy, it's Desiree. How are you?
Hi, good.
That was super fascinating from all of you. Thank you very much. Just wondering how young do you deal with for children?
Oh, I come into the family. So I've worked with women who are preconception, and I work with just adults who are kind of stuck in that childhood, kind of can't get out of that childhood trauma. Really, it's the spectrum, because good eating, good lifestyle, all of that really applies from conception on. It really is preconception, because the genetics that mom will pass on, they can be influenced by her lifestyle before she has even conceived. So there isn't any point that I would say, yeah, that's not an appropriate client for me, you know?
And do you take insurance?
Unfortunately, no, but we just achieved, as national board certified, we just achieved 3rd category insurance coverage, but soon, I would say our hope is within the next 1 to 3 years that they will recognize this as a service that should be insurable.
Sure.
But as of right now, I'm a cash only.
Okay. Thank you.
Excellent. So as far as wrapping up, Tracy, what would be the 2-minute wrap up as to what you would want someone to take from today?
A 2-minute wrap up would be, please release any fear that you have. There is nothing more oppressive, more destructive to our existence than fear. Every person who walks into the Center for Great Expectations, anybody who walks into Kathy's office, there is trauma there. And what's underneath trauma is people behaving from fear. So if you want to bolster your immune system and have the best defense possible against this virus and there's other threats out there. It's not just COVID. Eat well, sleep well, hydrate well, but above all, let go of fear and just step out into life, believing that there is so much more good than bad, and taking your gifts and your passions and spreading them out, just filling the room with love. That alone, we are like tuning forks to each other. If you walk into a space and you bring love, no judgment, just love, the people, it will bounce and resonate off of people who may have come in with a little bit of fear, but that love will bring everybody back to center. And that helps regulate and initiate the immune system to do what it's supposed to do instead of managing a fear load. So my 2-minute would be try to let go of the fear that maybe you've picked up this last year.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, I want to thank everyone for taking the time here today. I think it was fascinating. We will be breaking it down into smaller videos, but we will going to keep the whole video together because the string runs together so nicely. People may actually invest the 50 minutes to watch the whole thing from end to end. So just want to thank everyone for being here today. Want to again remind people that the Center for Great Expectations is right here in Somerset, New Jersey, Somerset County. And it's a great resource. Work with Rutgers University and other things, all that they had mentioned here today. Rochelle, her business is right out in Clinton, and the release, we have Tracy's in Clinton, and so is Kathy. Seems like to be a Hunterdon County day today for the most part. So excellent. And we do this once a month. We pick a topic that people tell us they want to know more about and people want to hear about. And we introduce one nonprofit to help. And then we turn around and let the experts kind of talk about what they do best. So feel free to join us any week at relaxteams.com. We have our huddles at 8 a.m. every morning. It's a Zoom. Everyone's welcome. Feel free to join. There's no cost. And we're just all in this together to try to help each other and to survive as a business and survive as people like we heard about today. So thanks, everyone. Feel free to reach out. If you have any questions, you can reach me, Dennis at relaxtax.com. Enjoy.
Bye-bye.
Bye.